So, my friend, you'd have a story, would you? In the days before my grandsire's forebears, this was, in the time when the kings of Erin claimed rulership over all the lands to the south and west, that Ithil plied the waves in his currach in search of fish. In those days the sea gave forth that which the most avaricious could desire, pouring forth to net and spear to feed the families of the seaside. And Ithil was great with skill among them. But a wife had Ithil none. No, nor kinfolk around neither. No son nor daughter laughed in his home, and his own da had been lost near 5 years to the storms of midwinter. So Ithil fished alone. Early mornings he would paddle out in his currach along the rocks of the western coast, and evenings he would come back, his boat laden with fish to trade in the village. And though none shared Ithil's table, he was mean to no one and never cheated a soul. One morning, when the mist hung gentle upon the air, it was that Ithil, as he paddled along the rocks of the western coast, saw something never before seen to him. A maiden. Skin the white of ocean foam, hair the dark black green of seaweed, as lithesome in form as a fish and beautiful to behold, sat upon a rock and gazed at the shore. From old stories, Ithil knew that any man who had the Selkie's skin in his possession would have the creature in his power to command. And where Ithil sat and listened to her, as her song in a language that was queersome to him made his heart ache with his loneliness, he developed a plan. Stealthily, Ithil sought among the rocks along the coastline out to sea until he found what he sought. Now, sometime later, the maid Selkie went to find her sealskin coat and slip within it, and discovered that not all was as she had left it. In and amongst the rocks where she had hid her magic, she beheld Ithil's work, for there, upon the skin, untouched, were 3 fine, fat cod, arranged so in a neat line. Quickly the maid took up her seal robe and darted into the water to make her escape, but not before eating well of the offered fish. Spring passed into summer, and the maiden would come back often to her rock to look upon the golden fields of shore and gaze upon the land. And sometimes, when she would return to her skin, there would be things left there for her. Fish and cockles, tiny shells carved into intricate shapes, a fine bone comb that she pulled through her long dark hair. And then, one day, a flower. It was colors the maid, whose name was Weir, had no names for, and she marveled as she twirled it in her gentle fingers. So lost was she in contemplation of the bloom that Ithil, where he sat in his currach some ways near, had to cough to get her attention. Weir made to flee, but Ithil made no move, save to bow his head gently, and she stopped. It was some work to make themselves known to each other, for their language was queersome to each other's ears, and they found their tongues strangely clumsy besides. But they did manage. "Why took you not my hide?" asked Weir. "No man's property would I take," said Ithil. "No, nor thief would I be. And no maiden would I bind from her freedom save by her will and joy." And so the summer slipped into the early days of autumn, and Ithil paid court to Weir there among the rocks, and they grew greatly in each other's esteem as they spoke of things past and present, and some things to come. And so it was that as the harvest festivals drew nigh, Ithil went to sea one day alone, but did not return so. Their days were merry, their nights were snug, and as the first snows of the winter came upon Ithil's little cottage, the flowers bloomed within. So they were married, and they had 4 daughters and 3 sons besides, and their house was filled with joy and laughter, and their love was great. As things fall, their children grew, and once they had left home to their own endeavors, Wyrd was seen less among the village by day. But Ithil, though his beard grew gray and his hands gnarled, went to sea each day, accompanied by a seal, lithesome in form, who rolled and dived among the waves, and always Ithil returned with his nets full of fish. Wyrd grew older, but not so fast as her love. And the day came when Ithil could no longer rise to go to the shore, and his sons and daughters, their daughters and sons in turn, gathered nigh him. But Wyrd was not among them. The children took up his hand and sat by his bedside. They spoke of his deeds and his heart, and they wept as he passed from them to the very edge of the land of shadows. And so Wyrd returned, her arms laden with skins which she bore to her love's bedside. "Help me to wrap and carry him," she said. And the children did so. And they bore Ithil down to the water side and lay him in the curragh. And Wyrd turned to her children and grandchildren and kissed each of them on the head in turn. And then she pushed the curragh out under all of nature's stars. Never more were Ithil and Wyrd seen around that village. But their sons and daughters and grandchildren and their children and many more besides were ever aware of the eyes, warm and brown and full of love and pride, of 2 seals, joyous in the waves, who were seen in those waters for many, many years.